Up to this point, we have talked about the fact that the digestive system provides the body with nutrients, so that way the body can carry out cellular respiration and get energy. Well, those nutrients are absorbed in the body and in the digestive system, and we need to transport those nutrients throughout the body. We have a different system that is going to help us transport or circulate these materials. To circulate means to transport or to move. So your circulatory system is the system that transports. It is the transport system. It moves substances to and from the cells. And your circulatory system is made up of your blood, that's what is moving around. It's made of your heart, because that needs to pump the blood. And it's also made of blood vessels, because the blood has to be contained inside of something as it's traveling. So we're going to talk about each of those components briefly. So the first one mentioned here is the heart. It's a strong muscle. It's about the size of your fist. It expands and contracts as blood comes in and out. And the way it does that is because it is a muscle and it pumps. So when you exercise, your heart is going to actually beat much faster, making your pulse increase. And the reason why your heart beats faster is because your cells need more. It needs more oxygen. It needs more nutrients in order to carry out cellular respiration. So it needs more oxygen and glucose to do cellular respiration. So here's a picture, a couple of different angles of the heart. And your heart is broken into different categories. First, it is broken into a left side and a right side. And the left side and the right side then have a top and a bottom. The top chambers are called the atrium, and the bottom parts are called ventricles. And they do different things. So the atrium here, it's going to receive blood. Blood comes in. The ventricle areas is actually going to allow blood. It's going to pump blood out. It's going to pump blood to different parts of the body. These pictures here show you the vessels that leave are not quite the way I showed you, but they pump blood out of the body. So we say we have, since we have a left side and a right side, we say we have two different circulations moving around in the body. So again, the main function or job of the heart is to circulate blood. And there are essentially two pumps because there's a left side and a right side. One of the sides is called pulmonary circulation. If any one of you have had any type of asthma and you've taken a Pulmicort medication, pulmonary means lungs. It's a system of vessels that move blood right up near the lungs, very close to the lungs. And the reason why it has to go very close to the lungs is because we want that blood to pick up oxygen from the lungs. So it's going to pick up the oxygen. So we could show that here by showing that right here, the right side is going to send the oxygen up here to the lungs, and when it gets there, it's going to pick up the oxygen. So I'm going to color this here red. Comes down into the heart, and then the heart has to give it one more big burst, and then it's going to send that all out here. Okay? So the reason that I colored all that red is because this blood here, this blood is very rich in oxygen. The reason why came from the lungs. So when it goes up to the lungs, that's called pulmonary circulation. The other system is called systemic. This is the system of vessels that moves blood through the entire body to all systems. The reason it needs to do that is because it wants to carry oxygen to all the other parts of the body. And it also wants to remove waste from those cells. So I'm going to show you here. The body is located here in the picture, and I'm going to color this side blue because this blood right here is very poor in oxygen. And the reason that this blood here is poor in oxygen is because the blood had come from the body. And the body used up all that oxygen. All right, Next, we have different kinds of blood vessels, and these vessels have the job of carrying the blood throughout the body. And there are three major categories that you need to know. First, the blood is carried away from the heart in these very thick, strong vessels. They're called arteries. These have to be very thick and strong because the blood, immediately when it leaves the heart, is moving very quickly. So these arteries have to be very strong. Then you have the tiniest, smallest vessels. We need the vessels to get very small so that our materials like oxygen and glucose can diffuse through these very quickly. So they have to be very small, very thin. These are called capillaries. And then lastly, the blood needs to come back to the heart, so it comes back in a different vessel. These vessels have valves, so the blood keeps moving in one direction. The valves close up and they don't let the blood go back the wrong way. These vessels that have valves are called veins. So in the picture over here, we can pretend that, again, the heart is up here, and this is showing that the blood is being carried away from the heart. That would be an artery. These very small vessels here would be capillaries, and they're very small to bring those nutrients and oxygen to the other organs and cells. And then the blood has to go back to the heart eventually to be pumped again, and it goes back through the veins. All right, so what is blood made of? On the back here, it goes over the components of blood. And as you can see right here, this is our vessel. This is our highway, that all this stuff is traveling through these vessels, through this highway. And we can see right here, inside the blood, we have red blood cells. These red blood cells we often call RBCs. They're important because they carry the oxygen. They're like a boat. See the shape of it? It's like a little tube, and oxygen sits right in that tube like a person would floating in a river. And the reason these are important, again, is because we need oxygen to be transported to all of our organs. And some people have a low red blood cell count. And if they have a low red blood cell count, that means that they cannot carry enough oxygen. And therefore, they're going to feel tired. They're called anemic. In addition to red blood cells, you will see right here that we have this other color. These are white blood cells. White blood cells have an important job in the body because they protect the body against disease or infection. These white blood cells, if there's a disease or infection, then the body's going to make more. A high white blood cell count means that you are sick because you are fighting an infection. So the body makes a lot of soldiers to fight that war. Having a low white blood cell count could also be bad. It means the body cannot make them for some reason, or that they are being destroyed. The next one listed, this is called plasma. You can see it's that yellow liquid or watery substance. Plasma is like that water that all these materials are floating in. You probably have seen plasma before. When a scab starts to heal, it kind of has a little bit of this yellow oozy stuff that comes out. So that's the plasma, that's the liquid. And then lastly here in the picture, we have these little things. These are called platelets. Platelets are little teeny tiny bits of cells, and their function is to help clot blood. So they form like a network when you create a scab, and they kind of all trap together, and that's going to help clot blood so you stop bleeding, and that's what forms scabs. Oftentimes when we talk about blood, many people have heard of the term blood type. So there are different types of bloods, and what they're talking about when they talk about blood types is they're talking about the red blood cells. And the way that you determine your blood type is these blood cells have different proteins sitting on the surface, or no proteins. So you've probably heard of these different types of blood. Again, it's determined by the different proteins that are on the surface of the cell. So we've got type A that's got this triangle. These are make-believe pictures. Type B would have like the circle. Type AB has both the triangle and the circle. And type O has nothing on the surface. Since type O has nothing on the surface, you could give type O blood to anybody. The universal donor. You can give type O to anybody because there's nothing on the surface, so the body's not going to see something it's never seen before. If someone has type A blood, you cannot give them type B. That's bad because their body's gonna see this circle and they're gonna say, whoa, what is this thing? And they're gonna attack it, and that's gonna harm the body. So the universal recipient that can receive anybody's blood is AB, because AB has circles, AB has triangles. And so the body's not gonna recognize any blood type as foreign. They're gonna recognize it all as, oh yeah, this is okay. Last part of this is talking about diseases of the circulatory system. And you've heard of many of these things. First one is clogging of the arteries because there's very high cholesterol. This is called also hardening of the arteries. So the blood cannot flow through them as easily, leads to heart attacks. This is called atherosclerosis. The way to avoid this is a healthy diet and physical activity. In addition, no smoking. The way that they can actually treat this a hardening of the arteries is with medication. Next one, you need to know this one. This is when blood vessels that typically supply the heart with oxygen become blocked. So therefore, the heart cannot get oxygen. This is called a heart attack. So a heart attack is when the blood vessels that are supposed to be bringing oxygen to the heart, they become blocked. So the heart cannot get oxygen. If it cannot get oxygen, then the heart cannot pump. If the heart cannot pump, then the other parts of the body are not going to get what they need. Again, the way to treat or prevent this, healthy diet and exercise, no smoking. If someone has a heart attack, they can be treated with medications, and even if they're at risk of a heart attack, they can be treated with medications. Next one is high blood pressure. High blood pressure falls in the range of 140/90 or higher. Now, why is this bad? Because it leads to heart damage. The heart ends up working way harder than it needs to, and it can make it weak eventually. The way to avoid high blood pressure, healthy diet, physical activity. You will notice a trend here. Next one is one I already mentioned, low red blood cells. That's called anemia. Now, why are low red blood cells going to be bad? Well, because you cannot transport enough oxygen to your cells. If you don't have the boats to put the oxygen in, you cannot carry enough oxygen around. The way that this can be treated is iron supplements, because there's iron in red blood cells, and sometimes people don't have enough iron in order to create red blood cells. They can be given transfusions where red blood cells are added. And additionally, you could add like green spinaches and things like that to the diet. Last one is called hemophilia, which we've already talked about this year. This is a blood clotting disorder, a genetic disease. This is a problem because if someone gets caught, they continuously bleed. They do not have that clotting protein to make those platelets. So if you don't stop bleeding, you're going to have a loss of blood. Loss of blood can result in passing out and all those additional things. The way that they treat hemophilia is with injections. They give them these platelets, these clotting factors. So if they get cut, they get an injection. Before we end here, I wanted to show this quick video clip so that you can actually see hearts working. And this is real life, 2 girls where their hearts were actually born outside of their body.
A little girl is so excited she can't believe who she's about to meet. For the first time in her life, she's encountering another little girl with the same rare medical condition.
Say what? Don't be shy.
These adorable girls were incredibly both born with their hearts beating outside of their bodies.
Is it like yours?
Vishavia is 6 years old. Audrey is 3. When the girls heard about the existence of each other, they begged their parents to arrange a meeting face-to-face and heart-to-heart.
Audrey's like, she has a pretty heart like me. This isn't her heartbeat.
Audrey's mom, Ashley, thought letting the girls play doctor would be a fun way to help them understand their medical situations and foster their unique bond. Each takes a turn listening to the other's heart with toy stethoscopes.
She knows what she's going through, and to see another child with the same condition is just amazing. You have like an extra special heart.
A beautiful afternoon in Houston is perfect for a picnic. It begins with a prayer.
Amen.
moms say they have a lot to be thankful for. The condition known as pathology of Cantrell occurs in 1 in a million births. Most of the babies do not survive.
They gave me no hope at the beginning of this that Audrey would even live 3 days.
Surgeons at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston saved her life by actually placing Audrey's heart back in her body. Audrey has already outgrown several special shields to protect her heart.
She has to wear her shield. Look, can you see her heart beating through it?
Today, Audrey is thrilled to finally have a playmate who is just like her.
Gives us courage that Audrey will one day be 6 years old.
Bashavia lives in Fort Lauderdale with her mom, Dari. The moms decided the girls deserved a gift that they could cherish forever, so they all went to Build-A-Bear. It was a special delight to give their bears, what else but a heart. 2 miracle girls with a heart-to-heart bond only they can know.